And do you recall your first impression of Lake McCree when you got here, and has he exceeded what you thought he could become?
Yeah, I've been around him a little bit. He actually came up and visited us at Oklahoma, so I got a chance to meet him there. And I remember we really liked him as a player. Yeah, I was excited, when I got here and saw that he was on the roster and kind of on his way to getting back healthy. And yeah, I remember a really versatile player in high school that doesn't really surprise me that the player that he's turned himself into. I think you just look at the adversity that the guys overcome. Had a lot of adversity when we were here, and then right in the beginning, and then obviously having the injury last year right before the bowl game, and he just kind of keeps bouncing back. He's incredibly tough, resilient, so smart player. Yeah, and I think the first impressions were, he was really talented. We just had to get him back healthy and then just kind of back in shape and going again. But you could see he had some ability and had a good mind and a good soul for the game, and he always has.
Nice.
Mhm.
Connor?
Coach, you mentioned on Monday during the bye week working on everything, of course, but specifically targeting special teams. Through 2 games, I feel like your special teams has been pretty solid outside of the one missed kick against LSU. What did you see that you wanted to improve on?
I think the punt return unit has definitely been one that we've tried to focus in on. Hopefully it's one you get to use a lot, as the season goes on. But we've got some good weapons there. So we need to do better. We've had a couple opportunities on kickoff return. We had the one big one against LSU, but I feel like we maybe missed one or two opportunities there as well. And I think just continuing to improve, to develop depth, to work on things you're going to see from all of these upcoming opponents. We feel like that should be a weapon for us. We've done some good things in the first few games, but we got, just as big expectations there as we do on the other sides of the ball.
Jack?
Hey, Lincoln, what do you remember about your trip to the Horseshoe to face Ohio State back at Oklahoma? And is there anything you learned in that game that you can take into this one?
Yeah, I learned. I don't know, man. It was just my second game as a head coach, and it was yeah, it was a big game at the time, like this one is. Two really good football teams like this one is. You're going into a tough road venue, kind of like that one was. So yeah, I think just reinforce the idea you got to embrace the road. You got to be able to handle the ups and downs and momentum swings that are different when you play in road ball, especially in good atmospheres. And you got to be a really tough-minded, committed, physical group to go win games like this on the road. So, yeah, really fond memories of that one, and a lot to learn from. But obviously, there's a lot different as well.
RJ?
Hey, Lincoln, you've talked before about how having proof of concept makes a big difference when you're recruiting. I think after year one, I'm just curious. I know it's only been 2 games, but how much has the strong start impacted the perception of the program in the recruiting space? And how optimistic are you that a strong season can lead to a strong finish to this class?
Well, I'm optimistic we're going to have a strong finish to the class, regardless of how this whole thing plays out. I think, yeah, sure, the proof of concept at some point absolutely matters. People want to see, they want to see progress. They want to see differences with the things that you're doing on the field, off the field. And I just continue to point to those. They're apparent in every single part of our program. They're apparent recruiting, they're apparent facilities, they're apparent on the field. I think they're apparent in, look at the next couple of games, here at the Coliseum are sold out. They're apparent in our leadership from a university standpoint and the athletic department, both have been just incredibly supportive of us. So yeah, I can't think of one example where you don't see massive progress, and we just want to keep growing, and that's going to continue to affect recruiting and all other parts of our program.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Luca?
Hey, Lincoln, you've talked about in the offseason how Zachariah Branch, developed kind of as a receiver and, with his understanding of the game there. What's been your evaluation of him as a receiver through these first couple of games? And do you anticipate him kind of continuing to maybe get more downfield looks as the year progresses?
I think he's definitely improved. He's I think, become a more complete player. I think a better grasp of what we're doing offensively. I think he's improved his route running, his defensive understanding, understanding our blocking game. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. But yeah, I think no question he's improved, and he's a tremendous weapon for him. And I'm sure we'll, try to find some different ways to use him.
Shotgun?
Hey, Lincoln, what kind of extra preparations went into this trip and your future Big Ten road trips, just as far as logistics, the before or after the game type of stuff? And who do you rely on to give you insight about places when you haven't traveled to them before?
Yeah, a good question. A lot went into this. I mean, there was definitely a lot of conversations and time spent with both college teams and especially NFL teams, because they do these types of trips a lot more often than we do. And we're lucky to have obviously two teams right here in town that we were able to spend a decent amount of time with on this subject, both the logistics, the science behind, when you travel, the nutrition, like everything from a physical standpoint for the guys. So yeah, we settled in pretty quickly on, on continuing to leave the day before the game. So we will leave a little bit early. And that was something we all felt very confident with. Yeah, we got a great ops team here, with Clark, with Ben Hines, with Cheryl Taplin. Those people do a great job. We send people out early on into the spring to get to these different locations, especially this year, because it is a lot of new locations for us to, whether it's scouting out hotels or routes or just anything that's unique about the travel that we've got to keep in mind, because at that point, where you're going, you get an idea of where you're going to stay, but you don't know game time, a lot of times. And so you got to be ready to adapt. And so, yeah, we're confident in our travel, in our plans, being able to handle it. And we obviously got a couple of these, road trips that are a little bit longer than what we're used to, nothing crazy. We're not flying to like Ireland or doing one of those crazy things like some of the other folks are, but yeah, we've had to make a couple of small adjustments, and we need to handle it well, just like every other part.
Thanks.
Jude?
Hey, Coach. Hope you're doing well. Kind of along the lines of Luca's question, what have you kind of seen from Jacoby Lane and Kai Lemon? They came in, obviously bulked up in the offseason. Just what has been your evaluation through those two games, and what do you want to see more? If there is anything you want to see more in the rest of the season from them?
Yeah, you always want to see more, but I mean, those guys they're all progressing. They're doing a good job. I mean, I don't know. I don't love giving just state of the unions on people after a couple of games. I mean, they've all done some good things. They've all had a few plays that you'd love to have back, but I think largely has been positive. I think they're improving like the rest of the players on our roster. Worked hard in the bye week to continue to attack areas in their game that they needed to be better. But I mean, those guys are all contributing on offense, contributing on special teams, and they continue to progress and get better. It's a good group of guys there.
Antonio?
Hey, Lincoln, how would you evaluate how the offense has performed in the red zone through these first two games?
We've been okay, just okay. We've held on to the ball. We've missed a couple opportunities that were, very controllable. We got to finish some plays down there. We've ran the ball pretty decent down there. In the passing game, we've felt like we've had a couple of missed opportunities there that we feel like are pretty routine for us. And going forward, that's something we'll have to do better because we've put ourselves in position to score more points than what we have in the first few games in terms of, not having to settle for field goals and getting touchdowns on the board. So it's been solid. It's been okay, but it will need it to be better.
Mark from the airport.
Yes. Hey, Coach. I asked you this question in practice on Tuesday, and I didn't get a chance to follow up, and it's kind of piggybacking a little bit off of what Shotgun asked you. What is the rationale for not wanting to get out to Michigan, these stadiums a day early to kind of, again, get rid of the shock and awe and give the players a chance to kind of just get a feel for the new stadium rather than just showing up on game day?
Yeah, I mean, so there's some of it is, I think, one, are you playing indoors or outdoors? I think I've always been a believer. I mean, playing indoors is a little bit different because when you're looking up or you're fielding a ball or just the optics indoor a little bit different. Sky looks pretty much the same from anywhere. Some of it too is just based on game time the next day, how much available time do you have? How easy is it to, fly in somewhere, transport, what becomes 150, 175 people to a stadium and then get them back to where you're staying and go through your routine. So some of it at some point becomes, all right, is it worth it to, go burn an hour and a half and have these dudes on the bus a bunch more, especially after they just got off a 3.5 or 4 hour flight. So yeah, I mean, there's is there part of you that at times would love to take guys over to get a quick peek at every stadium that you haven't been in? Sure. I think there could be some benefit, but you got to weigh it. And each scenario is just a little bit different.
Thank you, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Connor?
You mentioned Monday that you understood the two trains of thought with announcing a quarterback change for Michigan so early in the week. A few days removed, do you feel like when a team makes that change public early in the week, does that give you an advantage at all?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, not that I could speak to. I mean, you could see advantages from both sides. Sure, if you're on our side, you say, "Oh, that's great. We maybe have an idea of who they're going to play with." I think, but also there's probably a sense of, and again, I don't want to speak for Coach Moore or anybody else, but probably a sense of you give some clarity to your own roster, and some of the question marks there. So at the end of the day, it's going to still be, how do we play? How do they play? Who's ready to play, who executes the best on game day. I don't think, I know it's a story right now. When the game starts, it's going to be who plays the best on game day. And I don't think them announcing it is going to make a massive difference for one team or the other. Somebody's going to play better than the other team, and that team's going to win.
Luca?
Lincoln, you talked about how kind of in alignment that you and Danton's, defensive philosophy was when, he first kind of took the job here and when you first hired him through these last few months and through the first couple of weeks of the season. How much of you felt like that's held true of what he's doing defensively in terms of his philosophy is held true to what you've envisioned, from a defensive perspective?
It's completely held true. I think he's very very confident, committed to how we want to play. Not rigid, but there's a style that we want to play that he believes in and I believe in, and we're just continuing forward and continue to progress with that. So yeah, no, I've it's been exactly what I expected it would be. And I mean, anytime in situations like this, when you work with somebody, especially in an important position like D coordinator, you work with somebody that you haven't worked with before, there's got to be some trust on both sides, and hopefully he sees that. I know he does, that we've lived up to everything that we said we would do in terms of supporting that vision and building the right surrounding cast and all the other people's roles in that we've tried to do everything we can to make that happen. And I, like I said, I think he and our staff right now have done a great job, and it's 2 games in, got to keep it up.
Jack?
Woody's had a pretty remarkable career in terms of being a pass catching back. I'm curious, what do you think makes him so good in that aspect of the game? And is there a back that you've had or seen before that you think he compares to in that regard?
Yeah, he's impressive. His ability to catch the ball, his comfort level. He's a good route runner. He's a good enough player in the run game and in the pass pro game that there's not a whole lot of situations where you're like, well, wouldn't like to have Woody in the game. So I think part of it is just he creates opportunities by being a good, solid player and being pretty productive in all phases. Yeah, backs that I compare him to. I mean, he's got some of the versatility that Travis Dye had here. He's a little bigger and thicker, built a little bit different than Travis is, or Travis was. I don't know that I have one at Oklahoma like him. I could think of some guys maybe back actually even in some of our Texas Tech days, that were incredibly productive. Shannon Woods, Baron Batch. We had a guy right when I first got to Tech named Torian Henderson that was a great player and really versatile as well. So Had a back at East Carolina, Tate Cooper, that I think was very similar to him. So yeah, a few through the years, but Woody's a good player. There's some things he does. He does a lot of things at a high level, and again, I've just been impressed with his professional approach, and just how versatile of a player he is, and how well he's acclimated himself to our team and our locker room.
Thank you.
And we'll wrap it up with Jude.
Kind of going back to Anton, I'm curious if since he's been on campus, has he kind of like changed any way you maybe analyze film, view the game? Like, is there any aspect that he's kind of made you not change your schemes or anything, but kind of just the different ways you analyze film or anything?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm just curious if maybe with the way like he approaches his defense and his very organized theme, like I'm just curious if there's anything you've kind of taken from him and just used in your kind of, you know, your head.
Yeah. No, one thing we try to do, we've done it a couple of times this year, is we cross meet, where, you know, maybe a guy that's say a running back coach may go sit in a linebacker meeting. It's good to do that, but I like seeing how other really good coaches, you know, run their meetings, how they get information to the players, how they present. Like, I think we're all teachers at heart, and there's not any of us that we're so good of a teacher that we can't go listen to somebody that's a really good teacher and learn something from it. So yeah, I think, you know, Coach Lynn and all of the new coaches we brought in, there's been a lot in terms of their experience, how they present, how they coach, how they teach, that I've been able to learn from. I think our coaches have been, and that's one advantage of having a really good staff, is you got guys on the staff that are going to push each other with different ways to be effective, that even if we don't coach the same position, I can take this and do a better job with my guys. So yeah, no, I think that's happened across the board here.